Bring in more revenue while saving money and differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack vying to win those guests by becoming more environmentally friendly. We will show you how easy it is and how cheap it can be, if not free, and share all the opportunities available. So join us each week as we take another step along the green path. That's one more step to differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack. The Green Path podcast is kindly sponsored by Sustonica, the first sustainability certification for vacation rentals that audits homes on their environmentally friendly setup, installs smart measuring tools for water, gas and electricity, and offers an iPad for guests to see their real-time consumption levels. Learn more at sustonica.com. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Green Path podcast. Today is one of those small steps episode, although it's probably more an educational one than a small step. Today I'm chatting with Alan Kane, who will explain to us how we can harness the sun for power. So today's episode is all about solar panels. Hello, Alan. How are you?
I'm great. Good morning from Florida.
Oh, good morning, Florida. So, Alan, let's start at the beginning about your journey. How did you get involved with solar panels?
Oh, it's not a long journey. It's actually a family journey. Been doing it now for about 9 months or so. My wife's cousin, who lives up in Princeton, New Jersey, basically put solar panels on his house about 4 years ago and was so impressed by this company that he went to work for them. So rare story, but familiar story. And they company is about 15 years old, was sold to a young group of guys who really wanted to take it to the next level. And they were looking for, somebody who had experience in sales. And my background is, 50 years of selling and technology. So, I interviewed with them and we both thought it would be a great fit. And I jumped into it. And I remember back in December, I said, well, I'll start on January 1st. And he said, come on, Alan, you're a sales guy. Just jump in. And, I really have had a lot of fun. It's been very educational. I'm at that point in my life and my career where, I have to work like the rest of us, but I'm very particular. And what and this isn't necessarily about the solar piece, but what I really like about this company, and I think it is that they're all about education. And it's what you're talking about. It's not the pushy, I'm going to call you 15 times to sell. It's, let's educate that consumer. Let's do the best job we can. We want to provide a solution, and we want to keep you as a customer for the next, however many years. Solar's lifespan is about 25 or 30 years. So it's a lot of corpses out there of companies that just haven't made it. So I've both been, providing solutions. I was thinking about it before we got on. I love the word sales because at the end of the day, that's what you do and that's what I am. But what we're really doing is providing a solution for people to do one of really 3 or 4 things. One is to be more green and sustainable. And I have been shocked as to how many people, because that's sort of where I start, is what's driving this project. And I have been, really amazed at how many people tell me I want to be more sustainable. I want to be more green. The other is, obviously I want to save money. Energy costs have just absolutely gone through the roof around the world this, past year plus. So that's important. And then the other big piece, which is part of this equation today, is storage. With the climate change, with, the grids going down, people are working at home, and people have kids, and people have medical devices. Having the ability to run their electric appliances when there is no power coming from the utility is also an important piece.
Incredible. That's amazing. So I first became aware about solar panels and started talking about solar panels about 15 years ago. And at the time, my friend was explaining to me that the problem was storing the energy And I think that was actually the main, and moving it. So I know that solar panels would have come a long, long way since then. So what is the story? How does a solar panel work in layman's terms? How does it work? And then what happens to this power that's produced by the sun? How is it used in the building and stored, etc.? What's the story?
Sure. So there's really two different scenarios. The sun shines on your solar panels, whether they're on your roof or whether they're out in the field. And the solar panels have been built to literally create energy, and it's DC energy. And it's funny because people keep asking me, well, isn't DC dangerous? And, it's up on my roof. And I said, well, that's a discussion that's gone on now for about 130 years, since Edison and Tesla had that argument back in the day. But, it's basically the electrons in the panel move around a lot, and then it's pushed out of the panel. And then it goes through, a number of iterations. So now we have this AC power or DC power. And what do we do with it?
Can I stop you there for 1 second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excuse my ignorance.
No.
What's DC power?
So DC is direct current. So DC is what your laptop runs on, your cell phone runs on, after it leaves, the power leaves the electrical outlet. So you know that when you plug a laptop in, there's a big, they've gotten smaller, but little brick. If you plug, my Apple phone in, there's a little brick that goes in the wall. And what that does is that converts the AC, and in Europe, I think it's AC. I think it's just a different level of AC. I think you guys are on 240, where we're 115. Yeah. So it gets converted to direct current. So I don't know that I can get more deeper than that.
That's all right.
Direct current is it's just a different flavor of electric. And but our homes, our appliances, for the most part, again, in Europe, the research I've done is that there are a lot of appliances that do run on DC. So if you have solar panels on the roof and they create DC current, you can actually run those appliances right off the energy being created in the panels. And in fact, that's what's happening sort of on the electric vehicle side, is that that conversion. So there's different ecosystems, let's call it that, where some companies keep that DC power all the way to your electric panel. Now, everybody has an electric panel, right? There's other companies who convert it a couple of different times from DC to AC, back to DC, back to AC. Where I see the industry sort of moving, and I heard this on a webinar yesterday morning, is, well, let's use that DC power direct, because your car, your EV, it's a battery, it's DC, it's not AC. So if we can charge that battery directly from what's coming off the roof, we don't lose any energy in the transition. So there's a lot going on. You said, what happens to the energy? So I think I said there's sort of two scenarios. One is, you don't create the same amount of power every day. Depends on how the sun is shining, where you're located, did it just snow 5 inches, all of that. So, there is a sort of a bell curve of, if the panels wake up in the morning, start generating some energy. When the sun hits its peak, the panels are going to hit their peak, and then it comes back down. Some days, whether it might be like in the Northeast where I sell, in the spring, in the fall, the sun's not so great, or, it's raining, snowing, whatever. So basically your home, the way systems are tried to set up today, is you're going to use as much power as you can of what you're creating. But maybe, you're on vacation, so your panels are still creating. So what happens is the excess power will go back to the electric company. Right. And many electric companies basically have what they call net metering, at least here in the States, and they sort of create a solar checking account. So in those times when, your panels aren't creating enough power, you need to draw from the grid, you get a credit back. So, you're not, again, paying out. Okay, other solutions. Energy storage. Energy storage is becoming much bigger, and that's what you were talking about before. Batteries are getting better, no question about it. They're still very expensive. They're still fairly large. The chemistry that they are made out of is changing. People are very concerned. Fire departments are very concerned, over are they safe enough to put in, basements without sprinklers, all those things together. But they're being sold here in the States in about 20 to 40% of the homes that are putting solar panels on the roof. And why is that? Well, you look at a place like Texas that, this summer is going through a lot of brownouts. A couple years ago, they had a huge freeze, and people don't want to be without power.
What's a brownout?
Brownout, when your lights dim because the electric company has either turned down the amount of electricity it's going to send to your house, or shut it off completely. So let's look at California, where I spent 30 years of my life. There's so much power being drained from the electric company that there's times when they literally shut the power off. And then there's times where, California is so dry and the fires are so bad that they get to a point where they feel it's too dangerous to have the electricity on in a certain place, where they actually will shut the electricity off. Or during a fire, they'll shut the electricity off. So, at that point, what do you do? I remember my wife and I moved to Marin County, 6 years ago. And, first couple months we were there was this, absolutely amazing rainstorm. And everybody complains that it doesn't rain. It rains in California. We were without electricity for 3 days. And the trip to Costco that we had just made with $500 worth of food in the refrigerator So people, they see that happening. We're all, not all, but many of us around the world are working from home. So if you lose electricity, you sort of, can't work. You have children in the house. I use a CPAP. So I don't have solar, I rent, but if I lost power overnight, that means my CPAP doesn't work. Well, to me, that's not a huge deal, but what if it was oxygen? So energy storage is becoming a much bigger item for consumers because they don't want to be without power. Now, it is very expensive. You have to look at it more as an insurance policy than a return on investment, but it becomes a total solution so that literally it's like being up on top of the mountain. You can be off the grid and yet still do the things that you need to do, whether that's heat the house because it's 0 degrees, or cook your dinner, or run whatever medical devices you have. But it all starts with that solar panel on the roof that's creating energy for you.
Okay, so let's just look at each one of them separately. So you're saying that first option is that you have the panels and you have a battery?
No, I think the first option is just solar.
Sorry, yeah, and it feeds into the grid. Okay, so this is something that I had heard of, and I didn't really understand how that works. So you use whatever you want. The surplus goes back out to the electricity company, and then those times where you need more of it, you can pull it for free. You've given it, now you're taking it back.
Yes.
Now, is that a very well-known thing in the solar panel industry? Like whether you're in America or Australia, or it's not a common thing?
That's a good question. I'm going to say it's not well known, period, because when I talk to homeowners, and I say net metering, I get a blank stare. So even here and it's not every state and it's not every utilities, and the utilities, why I don't understand are pushing back against it. I guess it cuts into their profits. They're pushing back against solar, period. But there's a lot of different pieces. I mean, it's an incentive. I mean, here in the US, we just had, from the solar industry's perspective, we just got a wonderful present and opportunity where this Inflation Reduction Act raised a tax credit to 30% from this year 26%, next year 22%, and then who knew? So that tax credit is going to go now for 10 years, plus a whole lot of other opportunities. So there's that, plus in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and if I'm going off topic, redirect me, but everybody has, there's incentives out there in every place that I've looked at, to get people to go solar and to get companies to go solar, because that's the other side of it. It's, you're talking about companies. A vacation rental is a company. It's not an individual necessarily, unless it's an Airbnb. So, companies have the same opportunities to put solar on their roof. If they have lots of property, to put, an array. They have the opportunity here in the States now to get a tax credit of, 30% of the cost of the solution plus the batteries. So and in terms of companies here in the States, there's also the ability to accelerate depreciation. So you can literally write off a system in 1 year. So it becomes a 4 or 5 year payback for a business versus, 8 or 9 or 12 years in terms of, most homeowners.
Okay. Yeah. Look, I think that the whole thing about the tax credits and the incentives, the government incentives, it's definitely worth a visit. I mean, like whatever country you're in, it's definitely worth looking into, because the other thing that I learned 15 years ago until now is that the price has really come down. So once upon a time, it was new technology. There wasn't much of it out there. And now the prices have come down. Although I did speak to someone and they said that, they looked at the price and it was going to take them 25 years to pay it off or something. And the life expectancy wasn't 25 years. But at the same time, you are greening the planet and you aren't dependent on these brownouts, blackouts, and whatever else could happen to your energy supply. So you are becoming a bit more independent, but cleanly independent.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's all important stuff. And look, solar isn't for every home or business or every roof. Sometimes it doesn't work. I mean, I look at big homes and roofs and some commercial roofs, and it just doesn't work because they can't put the panels there. They just, I'm not sure, what engineer drew the roof, but it's like the Versailles. It's like, looking down on these things. It's like, okay, where am I going to put these panels? And then, other times, there might not be enough roofs. So it sort of has to, one of my colleagues talks about a three-legged stool. You have to have the budget to do it. It's not free. It sort of irks me. I look around, especially here in Florida, solar's free, do this free. It's not free. At the end of the day, it's not free, but there's budget, there's aesthetics. I mean, I've had a couple of homeowners I've talked to who said, there's no way my wife is going to let me put those panels up on the roof. I want to put a Tesla roof on there, and that's still that's bleeding edge. I come out of technology, and that's just bleeding edge. And then does it make sense? Is it going to provide you that return in a reasonable amount of time? If you're totally green and that's the most important thing, and you don't care what it costs, and it takes 25 years to pay it off, hey, there are people out there who do that. Most of the people that I talk to, they want a reasonable payoff. They want, to offset the majority of their electric, and they just, want it to be maintenance free. They just want it to work. It was like a car. You get in there, you turn the key, and off you go.
One of my questions is going to be, you mentioned about how sometimes, you just don't get the sun, you don't get any power.
Right.
The big question is, does the sun have to actually shine on the panel? What is it taking from the sun? If it's not direct sun hitting the panel, is it UV? Is it what's the other thing called? But does the sun have to actually shine on the panel? If you're in London, for example, it's gray, 90% of the year. Can you use solar panels?
Yeah, I mean, it's looking for the radiance from the sun, and what I've tried to do over these last 8 months is learn enough to be dangerous. And I've learned over my 50 years in sales is I don't want to know too much, because then you end up going down this rabbit hole of, trying to, that you'll never get out of with customers. But at the end of the day, I do want to sell people. So, but it's not really looking at heat right now. It's really looking at, it's the sun is exciting the molecules in the panel, which then move around a lot, which then get picked up on these bars that go across the panels, which then convert it into electricity. Mm-hmm. So if the sun isn't shining, but the sun's always, even if it's a totally cloudy day, as long as it's light, you're going to get something in that panel. And actually, there are now what's called bifacial panels, which also pick up on the reverse side, so that you're getting what's being reflected from the roof, because you will get some amount of light reflected from the roof. So, and then there's talk out there, and I haven't seen it yet, but that, to your point about light, that, there's solar panels being developed that will work at night. So does the sun have to shine? No, not really. But to get the amount of electricity to really do anything, it needs to shine.
Okay. And the other thing that I discussed on another episode was about EV charging points. So the beauty of having the solar giving you the power that will feed the car. So you're saving money on electricity and you're saving money on petrol. So maybe it's a no-brainer if you want to combine the two. So to help offset the cost of those solar panels, if you have an EV car, or if you're a holiday rental, if you're a vacation rental manager and you offer an EV charging point, then your guests pay for that power, which goes into your pocket, right, and you can earn extra revenue as well. So that sort of sounds like a nice combination to have if you can have it.
Right. What I think, and I watched your episode with Eric. I've also been in some seminars around EV charging, and it is an incredible growth area. One of the stories that I heard was, corporate managers said, no, nobody's going to really use it. If they put 2 out there in the parking lot, and all of a sudden there was a line out his door. And as Eric was talking about, they've developed software, because what happened is, people would park their car, they plug the charger in, and then forget about their car the rest of the day, and nobody else could charge. So it's an incredible growth industry, both at the I think he said stage 2 and stage 3. They're building them up and down the highways here in Florida and across the U.S. But there needs to be some new technology that apparently is coming in the next year, where what we were talking about before, and converting from DC to AC back to DC, and then you have cars that can keep a house running for a day or two. The new Ford F-150 probably could run your house for 5 days with the size of the battery. But the points, the chargers are one way now. They're not 2 ways. That's changing. So there is going to be a move to both a direct DC coming off the panels to charge your battery on your EV, and then the reverse, so that if you need to keep your house running, you can use that huge battery in I won't say cars, but whichever car you have.
Wow.
So that is, that's all changing. And again, I'll go back to this what I think is amazing bill. As a senior, it's also got medical stuff in it. So but they've upped the credit to buy an EV, both new and used. They've provided credits for people to move to heat pumps in their homes, in their businesses. So lots of stuff. And look, your podcast is about being green. Look at what's happening in the world. We as a people, if we don't change some things, my kids will not have a place to live. They won't have food on the table. So I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah. And on that note, I think we'll start wrapping up. Was there anything else about solar panels that you think we should know that I haven't asked?
I think that as I started talking about our company, I think it's important to be educated. There's like any industry, there's good actors and bad actors. And I think it's a long-term investment. It's something that's going to be on your roof for 30 years. So I think that as we talk about at Exact Solar, is we're here to educate. You need to be educated. Don't be afraid to ask any question. There are no dumb questions. And when you feel comfortable and you've gotten your questions answered, the other side of it is to investigate the installer. I really think it's critical, because if you don't check their reviews, just like going to an Airbnb or a hotel or a vacation rental, you don't want to be surprised in 2 years or 3 months that your system isn't turned on. So I think it's really important to do your homework.
Absolutely. And also the homework about what the government will give you in terms of help and incentives. Right. That's a very big one. Yeah. And a lot of the people who are out there selling are confused. I'll put it to you that way. They don't know. There's a lot of the owner of our company said to me the other day, he said, look around, Alan, most of the guys I've hired are older, because I know that they're going to provide the right information, versus a lot of the industry is young kids. I was a young kid once. I sold when I was in my 20s, but sometimes, they're not pushing the right information, and that's important at the end of the day. Yeah, the education and the experience. Yeah, right. Lovely. Alan, thank you very, very much for your time. If you have any questions for Alan or any questions about solar panels and solar power, pop them in the comments below. Let's get this conversation started about solar power. Looking forward to some questions. And Alan, thank you very, very much again for your time and for coming along today. Sure, thank you. This has been great. Enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode and were at least a little bit inspired. If you'd like to catch up on the other episodes that you've missed, just head to thegreenpathpodcast.com. See you next time.